I licked pills, booze, and the funny farm. I don't need anybody or anything.
The book was called Trash, but broke records on the bestseller list.
All I know how to do is take off my clothes.
The film was blasted by critics, but became a box office blockbuster.
It's a fashion show, it's a musical, it's a Hollywood expose, it's a horror movie. It's everything you could want in a movie.
That little whore makes me feel 9 feet tall.
But behind the on-screen saga of drug abuse and debauchery was a real-life story of starlets desperate to succeed and a superstar struggling to keep her place in the spotlight.
There are 20 others ready to step into your place.
High drama, low blows, and hitting the bottom. On Hollywood Backstories, Valley of the Dolls.
You've got to climb Mount Everest to reach the Valley of the Dolls. You stand there, waiting for the rush of exhilaration, but it doesn't come. And the feeling of loneliness is overpowering.
In 1967, Valley of the Dolls shocked the world with a splashy and flashy expose of Hollywood's dark side.
Sure, I take dolls if I gotta get some sleep.
Audiences were bowled over by its over-the-top drama.
What are you looking at?
And its eye-popping mix of the glamorous and absurd.
It's really camp.
A camp movie is a movie that's so hilariously over the top that you can't believe it wasn't a comedy. Valley of the Dolls was not at all intended to be a camp movie, and that's the best kind of camp. Something that's not trying to be over the top and hilariously bad. It just is.
The whole world loves me!
It all began in 1965, when New York social butterfly and failed actress Jacqueline Suzanne sat down at her typewriter and pounded out a novel about 3 young women with big show business dreams. Valley of the Dolls drew on the author's own experiences as a struggling actress and the stars that she met through her husband, press agent Irving Mansfield. The book was stuffed with scandal, drug abuse, and sex.
I've grown up with show business. I've seen people come starry-eyed, and I've seen them hope to climb Mount Everest, as I call it, which is the top. And I've seen many of them go into the Valley of the Dolls.
Dolls, of course, were drugs, little pills that you took. She knew the people she was writing about, movie stars, Broadway stars, and she also knew about dolls, that particular kind of doll.
Despite scathing reviews, the tawdry tale became a guilty pleasure across the country, hitting #1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
I thought it was a great book.
It was a fantastic book. I thought it was rather unpleasant, but I couldn't stop reading it.
Couldn't call it dirty. It's the way people are today.
It also turned a 47-year-old unknown into the world's most famous writer.
I'm going to write the way I want to write. And I want to show I can go both sides of the street. I can write funny, and I can write serious, and I have this to say.
In all her poochy decadence and her big mouth, she showed women that they could do what they desired to do, no matter what, at any cost.
Adding to the book's notoriety were rumors that the characters were thinly disguised versions of some of Hollywood's most legendary stars.
It was fairly well known by a lot of people that the character of Neely was indeed Judy Garland, and Helen Lawson, the really tough Broadway star, that had to be Ethel Merman.
During the early 1960s, Suzanne's long-standing admiration for Broadway superstar Ethel Merman had mushroomed into a friendship that bordered on obsession.
There was even one evening when Jackie tried to break down Ethel's front door, and Ethel had to call security. Jackie Suzanne got her revenge, finally, in Valley of the Dolls, when she portrayed Ethel Merman as Helen Lawson, this monster.
It didn't take long before Suzanne's stinging expose traveled to the big screen. 20th Century Fox purchased the film rights, and to direct, the studio hired Mark Robeson, whose hits included Peyton Place. With Valley of the Dolls, Robeson was determined to make a serious look at the harsh reality behind show business glamour. His first challenge was casting the story's juicy lead roles.
Jackie Suzanne had wanted Bette Davis to play Helen Lawson. She wanted Elvis Presley to play Tony Pollard. She wanted Mia Farrow as Ann Wells.
Although Bette Davis openly sought the role of Helen Lawson, Robeson had someone else in mind for the part, 44-year-old Judy Garland. Like the fictional Helen, Judy was show business royalty. But unlike the character in the novel, Garland was fragile and insecure, plagued by a history of chemical dependency.
She was unreliable. She was popping pills. She was doing everything that the characters in Valley of the Dolls were doing.
But by 1967, Garland was hungry to make a comeback, and Robeson decided to take the risk. Judy got the part, and on March 2nd, she faced the press with Jacqueline Suzanne at her side.
I don't think any actress could get a better role. I think there's a good chance to sing one song, and yet I don't have to depend upon singing. I like to act too, so I think it's going to be good. I hope I'm good in it.
The book deals with pills to some extent. Have you found that prevalent around show business people?
Well, I find it prevalent around newspaper people too.
Sound take 833.
On April 14th, 1967, Judy Garland reported to work to make this rarely seen wardrobe test.
Without a cigarette and a blindfold.
The superstar was in good spirits, but years of intense dieting had left her physically emaciated. Her weakness was also apparent when she recorded her big musical number for the film. Although Garland poured her heart into the session, her voice and her confidence were far from steady. And although no one knew it at the time, this rarely heard recording would be Judy Garland's final musical session for a motion picture.
Test Apple 1, take 2.
By the spring of 1967, director Mark Robeson was feeling the heat to finish casting the year's hottest novel-turned-movie, Valley of the Dolls.
Test Apple 1, take 2.
They say I'm difficult. They say I am drunk, even when I'm not. Sure, I take dolls. I gotta get some sleep. I gotta get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and sparkle, Neely, sparkle!
20-year-old Patty Duke seemed perfect to play the talented but volatile Neely O'Hara. A star since age 7, she was famous for her hit TV sitcom, The Patty Duke Show, and her Oscar-winning role in the movie The Miracle Worker.
I had just finished 3 years of The Patty Duke Show. Little known at the time, I had just had what was then referred to as a nervous breakdown, which we, these many years later, know was a manic depressive episode.
People go to the movies and they cry their eyes out over poor neglected housewives and overworked waitresses. Well, I got problems too.
I had been playing a teenager, and now I wanted to move into grown-up roles. And if I could get the role, this was going to be the vehicle that would make that transition for me. Be careful what you wish for.
Test 114.
The role of the gorgeous but untalented Jennifer was offered to a sexy young Fox contract player named Raquel Welch. But Welch turned it down, fearing it would stereotype her as a brainless sexpot.
Test Apple 1, take 2.
Ultimately, 24-year-old newcomer Sharon Tate was cast in the part.
Yes, Mother. I know I haven't got any talent, and I know all I have is a body. And I am doing my exercises. Okay. Goodbye, Mother. I'll send you the check first thing in the morning. Goodbye.
Joining Tate was 24-year-old Barbara Parkins, star of TV's Peyton Place. Parkins was cast as the naive Anne, a character rumored to be based on Jacqueline Suzanne.
Jackie Suzanne herself has a little cameo in the movie, a little 3-line part.
Miss Wells, you were the last one to see her alive.
Do you know any reason why she would take her own life?
Was she depressed?
Richard Dreyfuss also has a small role as a gopher.
Miss O'Hara? Well, where is she? She won't open up the door. Neely?
Hi.
Oh, God, you've got on your costume for the second act.
Joe, I'll do the second act first.
But casting wasn't Robeson's only challenge. As cameras began rolling on March 13th, the director was still facing censorship battles as he fought to keep the script's most shocking dialogue and situations.
I used words that sure aren't in medical books.
Stupid-ass nurse!
There's one really shocking scene where Neely O'Hara comes home only to find her lover, Ted Casablanca, cavorting in her pool with a woman.
You'd better run, you little tramp. How dare you contaminate my pool? Here, maybe this will disinfect it. All right, faggot. Start explaining.
One of the best scenes is when it turns out that poor Jennifer Wells has to do really bad porno movies just to pay the rent and pay for the abortions and the drugs, I guess.
Gabrielle, le vin est presque tombé dans ma chaussure.
Art films. Nudies, that's all they are. Nudies.
There's abortion, there's addiction, there's terminal illness. And at that time, these subjects had only been dabbled in by the popular culture.
But the melodrama wasn't all in front of the camera. During shooting, Mark Robeson began to clash with Patty Duke, and soon, battle lines were drawn between director and star.
I was certain that he disliked me to the nth degree. I didn't know until the picture was over and he stated that he pushed me that hard to get that performance out of me, which made me even angrier.
Get lost. I'm through for the day.
My way of coping was, if he said something unpleasant or overly critical, I usually found myself within minutes at the craft service table eating just about as many donuts as I could get in there in a limited amount of time.
All the younger actors on that set were really desperate and really nervous. There's a lot of bickering and fighting going on and vying for attention. It was like going to be the film that was going to make them.
You're right, it is an exciting business.
The actors were probably closer to the characters in the book than the book itself.
I feel a little top-heavy.
Oh, honey, you are a little top-heavy.
On April 19th, tensions on the set finally erupted into disaster when Judy Garland appeared on the lot to start filming her scenes. Garland arrived 45 minutes late, and Mark Robeson's worst nightmares seemed to be coming true when the superstar locked herself into her dressing room and refused to step out. When she emerged hours later, the frail actress made it through just 6 takes and then asked to be dismissed for the day.
She was a very frightened little girl, very much in need of some comforting and protection, and she asked me to come into her dressing room a lot and run lines. She was not able to remember them, so it was a matter of take after take after take.
And she freaked out, and I think she was drinking, and she locked herself in her dressing room.
She didn't come out of her trailer till everyone had gone. They closed production, and she finally came out. I shall never forget, she came out like the big star going onto a set, and she said, "Where is everybody?" And I thought, that's it, that's the end. And it was the end.
On April 24th, Judy Garland was fired from Valley of the Dolls. The actress flew into a rage, then stormed off the lot, taking her screen wardrobe with her.
They had to do what they had to do for the production, but it was a devastating experience for me. The dismissal of Judy Garland, it was just painful.
To replace Garland, the producers hired another Hollywood legend, Oscar winner Susan Hayward. When Hayward joined the production on May 4th, it was clear that where Judy Garland had failed to resemble Helen Lawson, Susan succeeded.
I love Susan, but she was a very predatory person.
I'm a barracuda.
She'd go for the jugular, too, if she had to.
You heard me. The song goes, and the kid with it.
Oh, Helen, come on. Neely O'Hara can't hurt you.
You bet your ass she can't, because she isn't going to get the chance. The only hit that comes out of a Helen Lawson show is Helen Lawson. And that's me, baby, remember?
But there was one thing Hayward couldn't do that Judy Garland could. Hayward needed a singing double.
I'll plant my own tree, and I'll make it grow.
It's actually Margaret Whiting's voice that you're hearing, but Susan is kind of badly lip-syncing it and making all these drag queen gestures. And everyone in the audience, Paul Burke is turning to his date and saying,
"Off stage I hate her, but on stage I'm madly in love with her."
And you're thinking, sort of.
And I'll make it grow.
But the star had a bigger problem than her singing voice. It wasn't long before the on-screen animosity between Hayward and Patty Duke's characters spilled over into real-life war.
Maybe Susan and Patty both are unconsciously living the part. They didn't like each other, you know.
They drummed you right out of Hollywood. So you come crawling back to Broadway. Well, Broadway doesn't go for booze and dope.
Maybe it was even the scene we were doing. The situation was created that we didn't really like each other, and we were going to do the best we could to sabotage each other.
Now you get out of my way, because I've got a man waiting for me.
That's a switch from the fags you're usually stuck with.
At least I never married one.
You take that back, you
Get your hands off.
There's one scene where she rips Susan's hairpiece off.
Oh, my God. It's a wig!
Back my head.
Everybody see it!
At that point, I think Patty went for the throat, not the head.
Goodbye, pussycat.
I pushed her, as I did in all the other takes and rehearsals, and something went wrong, and she fell. It was a horrifying moment.
Sorry, Miss Lawson, but an awful thing to do to a great star like you.
The director took the position that I had done it on purpose. That hurt me deeply, and it made me very angry, because it also gave Susan the impression that that was a possibility.
But actually, Susan could have belted her and Patty would never walk again. Susan was a strong lady.
Don't kill her!
I didn't feel that anybody liked each other. Everybody was competitive with everybody.
I'm not everyone. I don't have to live by stinking rules set down for ordinary people.
The only one that I felt was above it was Sharon Tate. The sweetest, purest, most open spirit.
Hey, let's go up to your apartment. It's freezing here. We can take the phone off the hook this time so Miriam can't bother us. Come on.
My mother says that I should have held out. My mother says I should have held out and made you marry me.
Oh, baby.
When did I ever do anything my mother told me to?
But as the grueling shoot began to run over budget, tensions only grew. And some cast members, like Patty Duke, refused to hide their contempt for what was being filmed.
Boobies, boobies, boobies. Nothing but boobies. Who needs them? I did great without them.
It was so overdone. The clothes and the hairstyles, it's funny. The actual last scene is where I'm walking up the hill in the snow. As I walk out the door, I don't put on any snow boots. I don't put on a snow jacket. Where was the director? Where was the costume person? I'm walking out the door like I'm, taking a summer stroll.
Dolls, the instant turn-on. For instant love. Instant excitement. Ultimate hell.
Nearly O'Hara!
Now, the all-time bestseller is the motion picture you wanted it to be. Valley of the Dolls.
On the night of November 14th, 1967, Valley of the Dolls premiered aboard a Princess cruise liner docked in Venice, Italy. Attending the first of the galas were stars Sharon Tate, Barbara Parkins, and Patty Duke.
They showed the film, and the projector was, because of the generator, it was running too fast. So everyone's talking way up here. So that was the first problem. The second problem was that they showed the movie.
They showed the movie. Jackie saw it for the first time. She said, this movie is a piece of, She promptly disembarked from the boat.
Suzanne was not alone in loathing the film. Reviewers across the country attacked Valley of the Dolls with a venom mixed with relish.
Let them say what they please. Even the bad publicity helps when you get to be as big as I am.
But although critics tore the movie to shreds, audiences loved it. And to Fox's delight, Valley of the Dolls became the studio's top-grossing movie of 1967.
The audience had the feeling that they were seeing something really privileged and adult, something you really couldn't see except maybe in a porno theater, but this was dressed up like a real Hollywood movie.
As time passed, Fans were also quick to notice the eerie, sometimes tragic similarity between the story and the movie's cast members.
Sharon Tate's character dies. And in life, Sharon died, with the Manson situation, which was a nightmare. In life, Patty had a nervous breakdown, and her character went through that in the movie. My character becomes a star, and then she decides, I'm going home. In my life, I decided this is not really what I want to do. I found it very interesting. It just gives me shivers,
As decades passed, Valley of the Dolls refused to die. Its reputation as an infamous cult classic grew.
There was a unofficial sequel called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, written by critic Roger Ebert. There was also a 1981 TV movie version, and in the 90s there was an off-Broadway musical version that played in several cities in America and was a hit camp sensation.
In the late 1990s, plans were underway for a big screen remake, as well as a book sequel to Valley of the Dolls. And in 1999, the movie that critics called trash was honored with a tribute in New York City, attended by cast members and a host of famous fans.
I finally started to like it because people in the street would tell me how much they liked it, and I figured I shouldn't insult them anymore.
Traitor.
My opinion.
Traitor.
A lot of the people in the movie wanted to distance themselves from it, but I think by now a lot of them have realized that it's better to laugh with the crowd than, try to avoid the jeering.
In the last 10 years or so, I've gotten to enjoy the fruits of Valley of the Dolls. But our last year, I saw it on the big screen. The only good thing was I didn't have any wrinkles.
Although now considered a camp classic, Valley of the Dolls has refused to surrender its place in the spotlight for over 3 decades. And despite its outrageous tone, the film, like Jacqueline Suzanne's original story, offered audiences an irresistible glimpse into the darkest sides of celebrity.
She never learned to roll with the punches. And believe me, in this business, they come left, right, and below the belt.
It is a big kick for me now to see how it's enjoyed and to participate in a positive way about it and see that there was certainly a whole lot of good as well as some bad acting on my part.
So what?
The critics said it was vulgar, glitzy, offensive, empty, shallow. Duh. That's why we love it.
They love me.